You already know it's your boy Saturday the Kid, man, the Heartbreak Kid himself. I'm young and great. Holla. At heart, I feel like I'm a musician, perfectionist, workaholic, family man, super happy, great vibe type of guy. Pretty much all in a nutshell. I'm always careful with that question because it's like, with that, when people say like, what challenges and what type of adversity or obstacles you had to go through, but I strive towards that. I'm one of those guys, like, I hate the easy road. Like, I hate simple things scare me. Like, things that are kind of like right in my face, I fear those. And I always wanted to go towards my obstacles, or what people would consider an obstacle. It's like those are like what's so fun to me. If it's not life or death, I'm like super excited. I'm like super ready to go for it. So I don't really like to word them that way, because when other people word them that way, they look at it like, some people, they don't really like, confrontation or, being afraid. They don't like being uncomfortable, when really that's what it takes to be successful. So just everything in my life, every day I took some type of risk, whether it was legal, illegal, right or wrong, whether I, drove through the fork in the road and went straight instead of left or right. So I always try, I'm very careful with answering that, because people words for it are so different, they mean them differently. So as I answer that, I answer it that way to really encourage people to accept those challenges, because that's really why a lot of people don't succeed. They're not comfortable being uncomfortable yet, and that's really what it's about. The defining moment, not to be cliche, but really having my son, because I didn't go through the most simple, politically correct way to actually the way I had him, but the way that I ended up handling the situation in the long run. Of course, with the support of my family. I know I use, single full-time father all the time, but it's like, I never mean to say that in the terms of me being alone. Like, there's been lots of support, whether it's been verbal, physical, my family being around, more than just my parents. Like, it's just been so much support with my son. So it would have to be that, because that was probably the most challenging thing that I've ever done. It's like the only thing that ever made me cry, besides like my grandmother passing away, or like Slim Duncan passing away. Like, only time I actually cried over someone not dying was like my son. So it was just like, that was it. Like, that was something that kind of keeps me on my toes 24/7, and that would have to be it. I mean, a lot. Besides just my parents, maybe on the business or success aspect, because my parents never, they weren't able to kind of maybe do what they could have done in the business world to the max, maybe in the family life. But you got Diddy. Diddy was probably the first one. I would first say RZA from Wu-Tang, because he's the reason why my brother fell in love with music and then passed on to me. Then Diddy, because the first album I bought physically was No Way Out. Diddy, that was his album. And then I would have to say Jay-Z. Later on, as I got older, I started to understand what Reasonable Doubt was about, and then the Blueprint One. So those are like the first guys that were really like influential to me, that I really started to study and understand, and just the marketing and the ideas that they had, and the adversity that they went through from the early 90s into now. But yeah, just anybody really successful, like, I'm a great listener. Like, I love, as much as I'm teaching, and as much as I'm walking around confident, looking like I know so much, I'm a huge sponge, even to this day. So anybody, I learn from kids. I learn from my son told me the other day what Green Eggs and Ham was about. And as I'm reading it to him, I'm like, I didn't know, maybe I didn't remember what it was as a kid, but that whole thing, you just think it's just a regular story, but it's about trying new things. It's about trying something that you haven't tried before. And he told me that, and I was sitting here like, it's not always about a mogul. You can learn so many things from, you gotta open, if your ears are open, things will come in, so it doesn't have to be just a mogul. It could be anybody. You can learn stuff from anywhere, Yo, that's a really good question, because you have like you believe in, it's like, say people who believe in God, and this is no, I believe in God as well, but it's like people use that as an excuse. Like I hear so much like, I'll go to church and pray about it, and it's like, that's good. Like I totally believe in that, but there comes a time when it seems like a lot of people rely on their destiny just rolling in front of them, and that just ain't how. I'm sorry, but that's not how it goes. It's just like you got to go out here and get it. Like everyone. Like there's no chosen one. Like no one's like Oprah and Jay-Z they're not angels. Like they're human. They have the same 24 hours that we all have. We all have different stories, different pasts. A lot of people hold on to the excuses, whether it's like childhood wasn't right. Maybe both their parents didn't have money. Maybe they didn't have both their parents. Maybe they didn't have any of their parents. And it's like a constant reminder to themselves and to others, I went through this, or I went through this. I didn't have. It's a huge excuse, and I think people rely on a lot of that. Not being self-motivated, that's one of the toughest things I think is because people that are self-motivated, trying to convince someone who isn't self-motivated, that's a very difficult because they don't understand it. Like you can say it however many times you want, but it doesn't transfer to them. It doesn't transfer to them the way that it does to yourself. So, I just think that people really have to get up, go out, get it, put 10,000 hours into something, which is how long it takes to master something, and keep doing it over and over until you can learn how to do it, focus on something, eliminate your habits. You know what your habits are. You could tell somebody you tried something 1,000 times, but if it's not equal into some type of, not just success, but progress, then you're doing something wrong and you're BSing somebody, and including yourself. So that's how I look at it. Happiness. I feel like, and not even just happiness for myself, but I went so hard and so long for happiness for my family, and then happiness for myself. Like that's really all I care about. It's not necessarily about how much I make financially. But of course we all know that it takes money to kind of be somewhat free in this world. But I'm so big on happiness and just good energy being around me. That's always been my key. Like, good health for my parents. I do little small things like put them on my gym membership, and us just being a family. I'm real huge on family, and that's really what's always going to be important to me, ultimately for me. Just a lot of hours. Like I chose my hours the way I wanted to for a very long time. Even when I had a job long time ago, since I started doing music, I chose to not sleep certain times. There's so many days, like a lot of people that know me, they know I don't even like to eat till like 3-4 o'clock p.m. because as I look back, I noticed that I would wake up and go straight. I will put my equipment in my room. So the moment that I wake up, I'm looking at a big board, a mixer board or some speakers and a beat machine, and I see that before I see my toothbrush. Which is why I always laugh when I hear Future say that before I wake up and I brush my teeth, I grab my strap, nigga. But even though he's reflecting to like the streets, but he was saying that in the sense of like, when you in the street and you grinding like that, like you're not really thinking about your hygiene first. You think about getting up hustling. The first thing that he do is grab his pistol because he about to go hustle. And his knuckles is ashy and his hands ashy because they ain't got time to be putting on no lotion. They about to go out and grind. They don't care how nobody look at them. And so I had that aspect, but with the music, before I wake up and I brush my teeth, I grab my mic, nigga. It's like, and I understood that because now it's to the point where I can't eat when I get up because I train myself to just get up and work instead of get up and eat, brush my teeth, and do the regular thing that a regular guy who will go to work does. And I think it's important that you set a pattern. And like I said, that's uncomfortable, man. Like, don't nobody know me for my breath to be stinking, so it's just like, well, what would make me do that? Like, I was training myself to get into a mode of get up and get to it, and not really worry about who's about to come in front of me or not worry about calling somebody over because I was so focused on, I want to be the best at what I'm doing. And that's really what got me to where I am musically. Well, clearly everyone exists if you're alive, you out here, but to me, I really don't think anybody is alive until they're literally doing what they love to do. Like, if you're not doing what you love to do, you're definitely just existing. You're definitely just You're just going by day to day, wasting a lot of time. I mean, and like I said, to each his own. You can do whatever you want, but I definitely look at and talk to people different who I see pursuing their gift and their passion. We have a lot more in common. So yeah, that's the answer to that one. Figure out what your gift is and master it. I think if everybody does that, because there's so many things that people live by, but I feel like if everybody figured out their gift and mastered it, the world would be a total better place. It would have nothing to do with me changing the world. It would be everybody. Like, one of the biggest things with crime and like negativity is poverty and just being bored. That's what causes everything. Of course, a little bit is like people crazy and stupidity, but it's because there's a lot of good kids in jail. Like, there's a lot of good grown-ups in jail. They either were bored or they just didn't have nothing. And they didn't find their gift, and they didn't take the time, even if they knew their gift, they didn't take the time to master it. And I think if everybody does that a little bit more, the world would be a way better place. And like I said, it would have nothing to do with me or anybody else changing the world. They would do it within themselves. There would be a chain reaction. But it's just the lack of that, man. It's like, yeah, that's just what it is. Yeah, it's just the lack of that, especially today. Nothing. Nah. I'm already doing it. I got a 6-year-old son that looks just like me. I'm already doing it. I wouldn't change nothing. You know, everything is, I mean, like, I'm happy where I am. I'm in my prime right now. I'm real dangerous. Yeah, I wouldn't change a damn thing. Every risk, every challenge, every stupid thing that I did, I'm alive and I'm not in jail. Cause people don't. People always worried about what somebody else thinking or saying. Like, I'd be damned. Like, I'm super confident what I'm saying. Like, I fully believe that what I know is what I know. Like, I'm like a genius. I'm not like the smartest nigga on earth. But what comes out of my mouth, I feel like I know. So I've always been confident in my instinct, and just the fact that people just observe and think maybe a little bit too much sometimes about, and it's not even necessarily about a move that they want to make. It could be about what the other person thinks. And I'd be damned if I move like that. Plus, I don't work for nobody. So it's like, being self-employed, ain't nobody telling me what to do. Like, it's only like 2 people on earth that could probably tell me what to do today. That's my mom and my dad. And that's just out of respect for them. But once I'm leaving their house and my mom don't call me, it ain't nobody that could change my action. You know, unless, I got mentors and homies that I'd be like, yo, you think this is wise? But other than that, I'm not really worried about getting fired. You know, I choose my own hours. You know, even dealing with labels, like, they ain't telling me what to do. So it's like, why would I be worried about what I say or do? You know, I don't give a damn what nobody say about nothing. So, but like I said, you can't really train people how to be like that, because everybody not media trained, or they don't really have the right aspect. I'm a realist. I have a very low amount of opinions. I'm not really here to say, oh, this record is this or that. Like, I want to understand why that record worked, as opposed to saying, no, I don't really think that record hot because he ain't do this right. But if there's a crowd of people that like it, I want to know why. It's like just being a realist toward things of what you see is what you get, not necessarily, oh, I think this is why this happened. And that's kind of like how I move. Ooh. Well, start maybe with my parents, especially my father. My father put a lot of gems into me early that kicked in for me to learn. Some early and some way later. Just being a man, just like, yo, my pops always told me, like, you know, don't run from a man. You know, I don't want you to ever fear a man. Be honest. Look a man in his eye. The constant, you know, repetitiveness of doing that, looking men in their eye, it'll knock the fear out of you. It'll knock any type of insecurity or doubt in your system. It just knocks it out. And that's why I think it's important to look people in the eye, you know, be honest about stuff. Also, just like, I would do things also early as a child with, like, putting my flaws out there. You know, I hung around a couple homies, like, we made fun of each other a lot. And the jokes weren't like just mama jokes. They were like we had a homie that stuttered. another homie had a caca, we would make jokes about that stuff that usually someone would be pretty much insecure about. So yeah, I just think that I was put in so many situations that there's no way that I could have been insecure by the time I got to high school. It was a wrap. So those are just my situations, and it made me into what I am today. Knowing your gift, like you have to find something that you want to do. Some people want to do like multiple things, which I don't ever want to tell somebody not to do, but I think if you don't put 10,000 hours into something, like there's no way you're gonna master anything. You're not gonna be better than anybody at anything doing it like that. Also, just happiness. Like you gotta find a way to be happy in every single situation. You can be upset or happy in anything that you go through, whether it's going to somewhere, getting ready for something. There's always something that can upset you, and there's always something that can make you happy and look at it in a positive aspect. So I just think that knowing what you want to do in your life, and it's also having a positive energy about it, as you go, because you can get upset while knowing what you want to do. You can have a bad energy going toward that, and it could just derail you so many different ways. So I think that's really important to have. Oh yeah, it affects you because, like I said, there's only 24 hours in a day. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. It could take a lot of time away, but it can also expose who your friends and family really, really are. So it's like it's a gift and a curse that you just got to keep your eyes open to. But yeah, it's affected a lot. But I would say more so for the better, because my friends and family that really, really support me and know what I'm doing, they've contributed some way towards it with me. And even at the time it's been a way I've been able to do so much financially, and even my learning experiences to teach, my son, my niece, and even my parents, so it's been more better than worse. And it definitely affects, it takes you away from time, because, if I could just go to my son's basketball practice and, teach a parent, son, kid conferences and field trips every single day, I probably would. But I can't. I just can't physically do it every single day without missing bills and missing rent. So it's just like, yeah, it affects it in that way, big time. But it's a sacrifice that I'm willing to take, and I'm also willing to put that extra mile in. So by the time I'm 35 or 40, I ain't gonna be doing that no more. I'm gonna be where I want to be with the fam, and that's what I'm working towards. That's just a matter of tucking your pride. I mean, anybody knows pride comes before the fall. Well, one, just the time that I put into it. Like I challenge myself when I do music. It's more than just me just uploading the beat. Like I want to be so involved into the song. That's one. And two, just being open to evolving with the way that the game changes. These kids create new stuff. And before I be somebody that's just like, oh, I don't like what they doing, I try to understand it and understand not just the sound, but the art and the culture of it, why they doing it, and how they're doing it, and mixing it with what I do. And so I think that's super important, not being too ignorant to think that you're just so much better than people who are more simple. There's an art and cadence. There's no time that you have to put into having a certain cadence. It's just there. And when you're open enough to understand that, you can learn from anything. So that's why I listen to so many of the teenage artists and all the way to the old artists, because there's just so many different things that you can learn from it and curve it to my own music. And I do that all the time. It's not necessarily that I'm stealing, because I have my own sound that I feel like people take from me, but I'm so open to just hearing a lot of people's stuff. And I respect so many artists, as well as wanting to compete with them. And when you have respect, as well as that competitive nature mixed in, you could be super dangerous and always grow musically. And I think that helps me a lot. Them things fighting every day. When I first started doing music, I didn't have no emotion. All I really had was like my passion into putting the time in. But then once, a couple people close to me was like, yo, I don't feel like you're putting your words of who you are into your music. I changed it. Like now it's all emotion. Now it's like if I ain't do it that day or within like recently or something, I don't want to sing about it or rap about it. So but like everybody who knows me, like they pretty much know anything that happened, I'm pretty much about to put it on a song. And I'm always gonna do that. And I learned that that's the best way to do it, because you can never lose. Even if it's not a hit record, so many people will keep playing it. And I'm able to eat off of that, because it's like people can relate more to that. Be myself, always. Be myself and challenge myself to be better at being myself. That's it. It has nothing to do with trying to impress a girl, a boy, a record label. You know, I pay myself. So it's like, that's it. And it's always gonna be that. And it ain't never gonna change. And ain't nobody gonna make me change it. So yeah, you can't lose being you when you know you're a good person. And I ain't never shaking that for nobody. Yo, it's a lot. The first thing, one of the first, I don't want to say mistakes that I made because I learned from it, but those people you start with, they need to be on the same page as you. As long as you on the right path and you focus and you know that you eliminated some of your habits and you about to put all your money into one thing, if you know you there mentally, you can't have people around you that's not there. I made that mistake for a while. And then you got to deal with, I'm day one, and people try to convince you not to have yes men around you and all of that. Like, why not? I mean, if you know something you want to do and you asking somebody to do something, and every time you ask them to do something, they got something smart to say about it. Well, when you in a game and you out of timeouts, you can't call a timeout. You get a technical foul for that. Now it's just time to score. Now it's just time to deliver, run the plays, and go. It ain't no time for you to be arguing with me while we on the court. That ain't how the game go. So that's the first thing I think every young artist need to start with. Focus on becoming an artist that know exactly who you want to be. Because once you kick that out to the public, that's what they want to see. That's who they want to see. Especially nowadays, you got to be exactly who you are 24/7. Because once that they see that you're not that person, it's going to mess up your brain. So focus, become the artist you want to be. And then once you know that you got that focus, everyone around you has to be that. And they got to know that you're the man, not them. Not saying you treat them like that, behind closed doors, whoop-de-whoop, but they got to know that it's about you and your brain. And if not, then they need to get away from you. And I see a lot of people making that mistake, and I wish a lot of other artists that are popping would figure that out. Now, another thing I talked about with people in this game, and I talk to youngins, and it's like, say I have a conversation with a young artist, and I do this a lot, whether they popping, because I done talked to artists before I done talked to Bryson. He done asked me for advice before he really got to his level. Even artists that didn't get as big as Bryson. And they tell me, yo, bro, you a real nigga. And they say, you so real, bro. And I tell them, and they go, man, these niggas out here so fake. And I stop them. Because one, I don't really need it doesn't make me real that I'm giving you some advice. You don't know what my ultimatum is. You don't know what my motive is, or nothing like that. But the main thing I tell them is, if you in this game and you looking for real niggas, stop doing music. In any field that you're in. If you're doing your business looking for good people, now I'm not talking about your team, I'm talking about people outside of your team. If you are networking and you looking for, no, they're not there. You have to keep the grass cut and look out. Like, these people are snakes, they don't like aggressive people. They don't like people to keep it honest. I'm not saying this to say change your character for them, but filter it. You gotta milk a cow. You gotta finesse it until you get to a point where you're able. Like, the biggest example of that is like Kanye, man, or Drake. Like, these guys look really, really quiet, early stages. And I mean, look at Kanye now, but nigga wild with it. Like, you think he wasn't that person back then? I'm sure he was. But he waited. He did it. Every step he took, it came out more and more and more. And you just gotta really know there's a time and place for everything, even if that's not really who you are. Like, you gotta know, you gotta control yourself. You driving your car, everybody know you hit that turbo as soon as the race start, that turbo gonna run out and everybody gonna pass you. You gotta know when to hit that button. And I think a lot of people just struggle with that. And you gotta really know when and where and how. Pretty much like just knowing the people I don't want to be around. Like, I think that's super key. Is like, well, you know how you look at yourself? And this is another thing, because sometimes people say you say like surround yourself by people that are, like yourself. But sometimes you don't always need to be around somebody that's just like you. Like, I couldn't even imagine having 10 niggas around like myself. Sometimes you gotta have that salt and pepper combination. Maybe there needs to be somebody around you. Y'all work is hard, but maybe his energy needs to be, you know that phrase, good cop, bad cop? I think that's needed, because sometimes there may be somebody around that's a little bit more of a people's person, and then somebody that's maybe not a people's person. They may be better with just kind of like being organized, and maybe the other guy's a little nice. You really have to figure out your puzzle to success. You gotta, know yourself. Is so important. Like, if you don't know your flaws and your pluses and your minuses, you're not gonna work. If you're not grown enough to know what you're not good at, it doesn't really matter what you are good at. Because once you figure out what you're not good at, then you can find people around that are good at that to fill that slot into the puzzle. And that's how you succeed and go to the next level. Well, now, I did this new thing this year. I started using candles. That's my thing. But I have a template that I use on Pro Tools. So I do some things that make me a little comfortable. I have my template, the mic that I have to use. I sit down a little bit more now. I don't write things down. But another thing that I do as I'm going around, I'm always rapping in my head. So the only time that I do write things down is if I may like see like I may see a name or an artist or a celebrity. I see a name a certain way, and I'll turn it into like a metaphor. I'll write it in my notes so I don't forget it. That's the only time I really write. Other than that, I do everything off of my head. Just started using candles. It's really good for vibes. But other than that, I can record in any setting. Anything after that, I can be uncomfortable. I know like a lot of people like it quiet, but like I've done like 80% of my songs with my son, flipping, dropping, yelling, screaming, daddy. One of my biggest songs, TLC, I did in my mother's living room while she was cooking and while Man was literally running around. Like, if anybody took the acapella to that song, you'll hear so much bullshit. But like just being able to do a record like that, that's like made me so much financially, but no one really knows. Like, my mom was literally in the kitchen on the same floor, watching TV, running the water, banging the dish, banging the pot, my son doing this, doing that. And it's like, who will record under them conditions? Nobody. I don't think I know an artist today that could do something like that with all that distraction, while recording myself, because I don't like engineers, so, but like I said, there's a little bit of stuff that make me comfortable, and then there's a little bit of being excited to be in an uncomfortable situation, go, okay, this must be that record because it's too much going wrong right now. I'm just gonna keep doing it to finish it. So that's just me, man. I used to have this phrase, everything for sale, even me. And I'm not saying I would sell my soul or anything, but I just wanted people to know that, if there's something that you see next to me that you want to purchase, by all means, we can negotiate this right now. And I've always been like that. I've been kind of self-employed since the 6th grade, selling snacks and anything and whoop-de-whoop. And it's just having that aspect of, as I walk into school and I'm like, there used to be this honey bun that everybody wanted. Like, all the kids in the school really couldn't. Me and my homies couldn't afford it like that, like 75 cents every single day. Of course, that sounded like nothing when you were a kid. But then my mom used to shop at Sam's. And I'm like, okay, this same honey bun, 75 cents in this vending machine. And I'm like, damn, you can go get a 50-pack for $5. And in my head, because my dad used to make sure that we carried the groceries. So I'm looking around, I'm like, damn, all the shit that they selling is like, I can get that same one item 50 to 100 times for like $4 to $5. I might as well just come stand in front of the vending machine and sell it. And I had to teach myself that. Like, my parents weren't entrepreneurs. So I had to teach. I didn't have a mentor. My brother wasn't doing it. I had to do this on my own. So I've always had that investment type of mindset since day one. Everything had to be cause and effect with my money. Even if you see me get something flashy, it has to feel like it equals dollars later. So I never been a guy, I never had a habit that costed money. ever. I never had a vice or a habit that costed me money. If it cost me money and it didn't turn into money, I ain't doing it. And I've been that way since day one. And so that's why when I talk to people and I want to motivate them, and like say if I tell somebody don't do something, but I know I got my vice, I try to give them a way. Like I got a lot of friends that smoke marijuana, which is like the only drug that I recommend people do if they do it. I don't have a problem with weed, but I do have a problem with my homies that used to choose smoking before investing their money into something. So I would use an example like Bob Marley, who found a way to turn his vice into not just even just music, but his lifestyle, his religion, his motivation to people. And I feel like I've done that as well. Like when I do my After the Heartbreak or Before the Heartbreak albums, people say, "Oh, yo, Si, you always had a way with women, since you was young." And instead of just rapping about bitches and hoes, like I found a way to kind of touch female souls. Okay, let me take one thing that people would say is my vice and turn it into something positive. And I think that's a huge thing people have to do. Find a way, if you do have a vice or habit, find a way to turn it into dollars, or maybe it is your gift, And I think that can help a lot of people instead of just eliminating something that you can't get. Like maybe you're like, oh, I don't want to stop smoking weed. Well, figure it out. Go get a dispensary, move to Cali and start selling. I don't know, And I think that's good motivation, investment wise, for people to even maybe take some, because a habit is, if you haven't figured out your gift, if I ask somebody, have you put $10,000 into something yet? And they say no, ask them what their habit is, and I guarantee they didn't put $10,000 into that bad habit. And if that's the thing that they need to go do, then maybe that's what it is. And shit, that's the best way to figure it out. What impact do I want to have on the world? Phew. I think I enjoy the fact that everybody that I come in contact with, I'm one of the top 5 people in their life, and I'm really content with that. I feel like people that really know me, if they had to not name 5 great people in their life, I would be there. And I feel like I'm one of those people. Whether it's whether it's good energy, whether it was hustling, whether it was fatherhood, whether it was being unselfish, whether it was being honest. I feel like I fit in a lot of categories to be a bookmark in somebody's life. And I'm content with that. You know what I'm saying? Not to think too big of changing the world, or I feel like I'm one of those people. I feel like my ratio of being remembered is gonna be huge. I feel like I could pass away right now and my funeral would be crazy. Not that, God forbid, but I feel like I'm one of those guys. I feel like I've touched enough people in that way. Yeah, I'm content with that. I'm not materialistic like that. I'm just not. I don't really, like I said, everything is about plus minus to me. I'll only do the liability stuff if it turns into something positive. I know how confident that I am as a person and how self-driven I have been since a youngin', but when I speak out, I'm speaking to people who don't understand it. And so I want to understand them. And that's why I came up with the thing okay, eliminate you. Okay, you haven't found your gift. I'm not going to sit here and keep trying to get you to find it because it's not going to happen tonight. If you haven't found it your whole life, me talking to you like this is not going to locate your gift. So the closest thing I could think of is what's been your biggest habit, and that's the closest that you can